Hello Serie A fan, and welcome to the Scudetto Christmas party. We'll bring you all the usual narrative and chat, plus a whole lot more festive waffle and bonus beers. Find out who's leading the Gagliardini Challenge, the most honoured and dishonoured figures in Italian football, and who would make it onto our very own Serie A Come Diamond Me special. If none of that interests you, we'll also talk about the football and the latest in PapuGaspGate in this episode of Scudetto. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Christmas special of Scudetto. We are 13 games into the season, and this will be our 17th episode, I'm reliably informed. And this is probably the closest to a Christmas party any of us are getting this year. So, Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks for listening to Scudetto this year. Just getting that out the way now in case we all get too drunk and forget to say it at the end. So, a bit strange to be breaking for Christmas so early. We've obviously got one more round of games tomorrow, before the Christmas break, before the winter break, and obviously very tight at the top. Now confirmed that one of the Milan clubs is going to be top at Christmas. Juve sitting in third, just 4 points behind them. We'll get into all of that in part one. And then in part two, we're going to round up some of the other games, answer all of your questions, and give out the Scudetto Awards. But first, a very Merry Christmas to my panel. Kenny, Merry Christmas. Do you want to tell us about your beers lineup?
Merry Christmas, Oscar. Well, should I go through the entire lineup at one time rather than springing surprises, I guess?
Or if you want to do two now, we do two at the start of part two. I don't know, whatever you think.
4 beers. I thought we were doing 3 beers.
How many have you got?
I've got three.
I've got two here.
Now.
Okay.
Let's do two now.
Okay, right. So I've got both of my beers that I have in front of me are from Leith. The first one is Pilot IPK, and that is India Pale Kolsch. And the other one is another Campervan brewery, and this one's Bear Country West Coast IPA. This one's a 6%er. This is as strong as I'm going because I don't want to, get up to anything that will get me sacked at the Christmas party.
Very wise indeed. And how about you, Boaz? Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. As I said, this is my one chance to go a bit wild in the next new year. So I'm going to take it. And Kenny's 6%, or I laugh in its face.
What do you have then? Tell us about it.
My choices are kind of dictated by the need for a slight Christmas theme. So my second one is this Hitachino Real Ginger Ale RGA. Lovely little branding. And as a result, I'm also having a Hitachino IPA as my first beer. And Hitachino is a Japanese brewery, so I've never had it before. Should be interesting.
Very good. Global beers on this podcast. I myself, I've actually already drunk one of them in pre-production because it took so long. It was the Malmgard Cream Ale, which was very nice and creamy, sort of quite similar to a Guinness, I guess.
An ale. Creamy and ale.
No, it was similar to sort of like a Porsche or a Guinness, but I haven't had a proper Guinness in a while, so it was good. This one I'm about to crack is called a Yolu Olet, which is like Finnish for Christmas beer. I don't know what sort of beer it is. I just asked my wife to translate the can, and she's like, it just says beer. So it's a bit of a surprise. It's 5%. Let's crack it open and see how it goes.
I've got. I've started on that IPK, and it's very nice. I'm guessing we're not going to have a chance to do a review of all of them this time.
As we progressively get drunker, we'll be. This one's great.
Oh, this is quite dark. I think it's like some sort of ale,
but not a creamy one.
It's not very creamy, no. Anyway, that's probably enough about beers for now.
Very nice as well.
I hope that we're better at reviewing football matches than we are at reviewing beer, because we don't have very expansive vocabulary when it comes to that. Anyway, let's start off with Sassuolo 1, Milan 2. Boaz, can you tell us how fast Milan scored their first goal?
In the time it takes Bill Gates to make $600, or the time it takes a professional lockpick to pick 1/6 of a lock.
We're starting strongly here.
Leao managed to break the all-time Serie A record for fastest goal, and apparently it's also the fastest goal in the top 5 leagues. As I was expressing before we started recording, I wonder what the all-time record is, including, as Kenny said to me, the ones before we had video recordings and stuff like that. But anyway, it's a nice achievement, and the Milan coach Pioli claimed that they've been practicing that move throughout the season, and that they had 4 or 5 solutions for kickoff.
I don't think maybe it would be faster if someone would just shoot from kickoff and it went straight in. Like maybe there's some poor keeping in the annals, but you'd think that the players are faster now and the pitches are quicker, but it probably is the quickest.
I mean, technically, you have to wonder about Sassuolo's defense, because arguably at the beginning of at the very start of the match is when you should be most prepared mentally, when whatever the manager said at the beginning of the game is freshest in your mind. And yet the defense was a little bit like butter, and Hakan and Leao were able to run right past them and score this crazy fast goal. And I have to be honest, I was still making an espresso. I definitely wasn't expecting there to be a goal so quickly.
Kenny, did you want to weigh in on how fast it was?
It was pretty fast. But no, I wanted to just comment on what Boaz mentioned about Pioli saying afterwards that Milan apparently have 4 or 5 of these schemes prepared for starting the game, and I've heard it or read it suggested that basically the idea isn't every game we're going to try and score a goal from kickoff. The idea is to like set the tone for the game, and it's like as mental as much as anything to try and get the players into that mode where right from kickoff we're at it, and to start on the front foot, to start by going forward, which I think is interesting. Is a kind of interesting insight into what goes on that we don't necessarily see. The approaches taken when the cameras are switched off.
Yeah, we should look out for that start of when the football comes back. Actually, I remember Jonathan Wilson of The Guardian saying taking the time to analyse what every team did from kickoff, and in the Premier League, and most of them were just kicking for territory. So maybe we should do something similar for Serie A. We'll get back to you on that. Anyway, but the other thing we need to talk about with Milan is that they'll obviously be happy that the break's coming, because it seems like they've got a growing list of injuries. Kessie now suspended, Benacer is injured, Tonali potentially out, and then obviously Rebic, Zlatan, and Gabbia Ankier all still out. How much of a concern is this? Do you expect to get some of those back before the first round of games in early January?
So it is a certainty that all the names you mentioned will be missing the big game in midweek against Lazio at San Siro. We kept saying throughout the build-up to the previous games that without these so-called elder statesmen on the field, the whole team is relying on some sort of inertia as opposed to any sort of experience. As having said that, the team spirit in Milan is very strong right now. And while obviously Lazio are not an opponent to be scoffed at or underrated, even without these big names, Milan couldn't get a result. However, going back to what you said, of course, it will be a completely different proposition when Ibrahimovic, but also to a lesser extent, Kjaer, will be back on the field, and Benacer, who's actually been the kind of ticking clock in midfield for everything that's been happening.
Yeah, fair point.
I just want to say that it takes the Eminem 40. He manages in 6 seconds. Eminem manages to rap 40 words. So
40.
Yeah, well, 39 if we were going to be exact, but I rounded it up for him.
Good to know. Thanks for that. Moving on to Inter, who could still be winter champions. Are we still using that term for this point in the season? I'm not really sure, but they could go into the break top.
I think technically winter champions is after one round of games, isn't it? Which obviously this season started a bit later. So yes, they could be champions at Christmas.
Christmas champions.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Inter still have the possibility of being Christmas champions. They beat Spezia 2-1. You said last week, Kenny, you apologised for writing them off. What can we say about Inter that's new this week? Solid performance. Just looks to be building some momentum, don't they?
Yeah, in terms of results, yes. They're still not really convincing, particularly in the first half of this game. They weren't really at it. Undoubtedly, they've gone on a run of very good results. That's, I think, 6th game in a row that they've won, and that in that we've got Sassuolo and Napoli who they've beaten. So while not the most difficult run of games, it also hasn't been without its challenges, but there are, I think, bright spots there. I think Sensi is beginning to come back to the sort of level that we saw at the start of last season from him. And there's been a lot of focus on Christian Eriksen, obviously, but it's very easy to forget quite how good Sensi was before he got injured last season. So that could be a real asset to them going into 2021. I'm still where I was a few weeks ago. Really, I find it difficult to pick a favorite. I would say it's probably between Inter and Juve, but not in any way writing Milan off.
What makes you say that? Just because of the squad depth?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we're seeing at the moment is that they've both closed the gap on Milan, and it seems to be teams like Milan who have slightly smaller squads that are beginning to drop points, and Juve and Inter, who have got the biggest squads, the most expensive squads, are still churning out results. So yeah, I would expect them. I think they've just the depth of their squad, really.
And on the topic of teams that are starting to churn out results, maybe we move on to Juve now, who won 4-0 away at Parma. They're looking really, really quite good now, and we're starting to see what Pirlo wants to do with them. And it seems they can even win when Morata and Ronaldo have a bit of a bad game. Obviously, the 1-1 draw with Atalanta.
Yeah, so actually, Morata and Ronaldo were great at the weekend, which they weren't against Atalanta. But I think as a whole, the Juve-Atalanta game in midweek was just an absolutely fantastic game of football. And I said last week, before these two round of games, the Atalanta and Juve were two teams that had put together two good performances for the first time. I think both of them back-to-back good performances, and now both of them have put in a run of 4 really very, very decent performances. I think with Juve, what we're seeing really is this Pirlo identity, like you spoke about. We're seeing a lot of interchanging of positions between players. I think it was in the Gazzetta today, they were talking about how Kulusevski can come in field, McKennie can push out, how Morata can basically be the player that Cristiano Ronaldo wants him to be, the fact that they're defending with a high line, the fact that they move the ball really, really quickly. These are all things that Pirlo said he wanted to introduce. And I think for a while we were thinking, well, where is this football that we were promised? And I think that's what we are beginning to see. I mean, that Atalanta-Juve game at times was absolutely electric, just end to end. And yeah, at the weekend, absolutely convincing, resounding win, and yeah, could have been 7-2 that game.
I mean, while we're singing the praises of Morata and Ronaldo, I think we do have to mention, I know we're going to come back to it later, but the Morata miss, a strong contender, should we say, in the Gagliardini challenge.
Glorious.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite football misses of all time. I don't know what he was thinking. He was played through one-on-one with Golini. I guess because Cristiano Ronaldo was beside him, instead of basically finishing, he decides to pass the ball to Ronaldo, passes it really badly. The ball rebounds to him. He's basically just got to side foot it into the net, and for some reason he decides to try and backheel it, completely miscues it, and it dribbles out for a goal kick. I mean, we'll speak about the awards later on, but I think this is a spoiler that it's going to be in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong contender, to say the least. Okay, any last points, Boaz, on Juventus or Parma?
Since we've mentioned both Juventus and Milan, it's worth noting that both Dybala and Donnarumma have their contracts up for renewal very soon. Donnarumma's contract expires at the end of this season, and Dybala's expires at the end of next season. And obviously, signing them up for a new deal or trying to offload them for some money is very important to both clubs. I think the standings of both players have changed dramatically in the past months, and I'd be real surprised if Donnarumma didn't stay at Milan, but I'm not sure Dybala is going to stick around much longer.
Yeah, I've made my feelings known before about where I'd like to see him end up. So if you're listening, Mr. Levy, get him on a plane.
And Daniele actually said that Dybala was not in the top 20 players in the world and therefore did not deserve the top 20 salaries, in more or less those words.
This is a man who was voted Serie A Player of the Season about 4 months ago.
We'll be returning to players' relationships with their presidents in part 2, but that's all we've got time for in this part. Just a few honourable and dishonourable mentions. Boaz, you want to give one to Buffon?
Yeah, I mean, Buffon was back in the squad for the midweek Champions League game, and he played again this week. And you have to say that keeping 2 clean sheets, but also it's kind of a retro feel when you see Buffon in goal. And personally, it reminds me of the 2006 World Cup win. So always good and always a great character to have in Serie A.
Baz, this is yours, but I'm going to steal it because we didn't get to talk about it earlier. This is an honourable to Eriksen or a dishonourable to statisticians, because it turns out Christian Eriksen was the most played player in the top 5 leagues in Europe in 2020, appearing in the most games, although I think was he 1,000 in minutes played?
Exactly, he was around the 1,000 point, and but the most played player. I think it takes his appearances for Denmark into consideration as well, and also a few games for Tottenham right at the beginning of the year.
And also the odd 1 minute cameo that we've seen him play for Conte.
It's worth noting. It's worth noting that on that same CIES Football Observatory list, Lukaku, also of Inter, is the first Serie A player to feature for minutes. I mean, outfield player. And obviously that's quite a big contrast from Eriksen, who's very low in the ranking of minutes.
Yeah, I think it's showing with Lukaku, isn't it? He's beginning to look a little bit tired. He, like Milan, will be looking forward to the Christmas break, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got one more honourable in this part. No, dishonourable, sorry, for Serie A.
Yeah, I'm not sure who I'm giving this dishonourable to, because as always when it comes to COVID issues, it's hard to pin blame on one party. Basically, Serie C side Casertana were forced to play their game against Viterbese despite having about 14 cases of COVID in their squad, and they played with just 9 players on the field. They asked for the game to be postponed, but the opponents refused. And as it turned out, of the 9 players who were fielded, 2 had COVID while the game went on. So a complete farce, and I think maybe the opposing team, Viterbese, will regret that decision now.
Yeah, not sure what to say about that. I'm not sure who it's dishonourable to, but yeah, sounds like a bad situation. All right, that's all we've got time for in part 1. We'll be right back.
Hello, Serie A fan. Make Scudetto a part of your weekly football fix. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favourite listening platform, and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at ScudettoPod. We'd love to have you on the squad.
Hello and welcome to part 2. This just in today, Genoa's manager Moran came ever so close to eating panettone, but has been relieved of his duties as Genoa manager. So reports are that Davide Balladini has been lined up to take over, which for what would be his 4th spell at Genoa. So 4th time lucky, I guess. Before we get into the rest of the games and our Scudetto and the Scudetto Awards, we're going to do another civilized beer. So Kenny, what's up next on your roster?
I'm onto the Bear Country, which is the West Coast IPA. I've already cracked it open because I don't want to waste any time. It tastes good. It's very smooth. I like it. And I've got a Beavertown Necco lined up.
Sounding very focused, especially considering you had 2 beers already. How about you, Baz? What have you got?
I'm just about to snap this ginger ale beer. Apparently it's got real ginger ale in it.
So you're only on your 2nd?
I'm on my 2nd, and it has it's a 8%er, so I may be on my 2nd, but I'm drinking proper men's beers or something like that.
This is where you needed a tactical session IPA in the equation somewhere to just like help you power through. You've got 3 to consume by the end of this recording. So
Yeah, I've gone for the more sort of difficult abrasive beers first, and now I've got myself a nice New England Pale Ale, also from Malmgard. Nice safe one to finish off. Hopefully can get through this part unscathed. Okay, let's start with Lazio 2, Napoli 0.
Wow.
Okay, Boaz?
The 8%er tastes like it's a shot of whiskey or something. Strong.
And you got to get through that one to get to the next one.
The next one is going to be a much chiller experience, I'm sure.
This is a Christmas party, Boaz. Get on it.
I've got my hat on and the lights out.
Pull yourself together and tell us your thoughts on Napoli, because Gattuso is sending them into Ritiro.
So this was perhaps a surprising result given the recent results from both teams. As we mentioned a few weeks ago, Lazio struggled to get through in Europe, although ultimately qualifying was a glorious achievement. And Napoli overall had been playing well and were threatening to get into the Champions League spot. And we kept mentioning that without the 3 points plus 1 minus point lost against Juventus, they could be well in the top. Having said that, in this game, they didn't perform too well, and the result isn't that surprising. It's unfortunate to say, but the likes of Lozano, Petagna, and Politano are not the best suited subs for Osimhen, Mertens, Insigne, who are all missing from this game. Furthermore, it has to be said that Lazio put in a really good defensive performance with the likes of Huet and Luis Felipe playing really well. Ciro Immobile gets his 12th goal in 13 games, which again, considering he's only behind Lewandowski, Haaland, Salah, and Cristiano Ronaldo in the whole of the world, pretty impressive. And if you saw the goal, it's a really nice header, the kind of thing that Ciro Immobile is known for. And it's also nice to see Luis Alberto get on the score sheet, set up beautifully by Ciro Immobile, perhaps unselfishly, I might add, because he could have run on by himself. But in any case, Luis Alberto, we may remember, had a few issues with the club, not spending enough money on the personnel. And he was quite vocal on social media and Twitch and other things about it. Anyways, he scored and ran to the manager to hug him, partly also because Inzaghi's contract is kind of up for renewal and it's not clear if it will be renewed. So kind of a nice story of redemption there. And last point on this game is that it feels like Simone Inzaghi has settled on the surely 100-year-old Pepe Reina as his goalkeeper, with Strakosha going out with COVID earlier in the season and then being rushed back for a couple of games and not really being up for it. It looks like Inzaghi is very confident in the Spanish keeper. It's an interesting choice because when he arrived at Milan a couple of seasons ago, he was there as a reserve keeper. And again, last season at the Villa, you also felt that you weren't sure if he was going to be a starter or not. Again, it's nice to see that Pepe Reina's career goes on.
Yeah, I mean, he actually made a couple of good saves as well, didn't he? But Kenny, did you want to come in on Napoli's injury crisis there?
I actually wanted to come in and just give some respect to Lazio, really, because this is probably them back to being at their, doing what they did so well last season. They were just incredibly well organized, broke with real purpose, were really lethal when they did have opportunities. And I think afterwards, Immobile himself said, "This is Lazio. This is the Lazio that we know." And it does have to be said that it might be it's true, but it might also be the easy thing to say, well, Napoli weren't at the races, but equally Lazio were great, and I'd like to hope that this is perhaps them turned a corner, really, because their performances in the face of adversity in Europe obviously have been good this season. In Serie A, that's not been the case. And actually, taking a look at the league table, they do still, all is not lost. They do still have an opportunity to make that top four again. So I think, I mentioned last week that it's a crazy season where there's going to be constantly changing narratives, and this could be one of those. It could be that they've found form at the right time.
Yeah, and just on that point, obviously, we were saying last week that maybe the teams with the smaller squads are going to be struggling the most.
And it's funny you mention that, because we mentioned earlier in the season that Lazio's squad beyond the starting 11 is a little bit weak. They can put in a great performance like they did against Napoli, but at the same time, all you need to do is, if one or two players are out, the whole mechanism falls. Likewise, we're speaking about Napoli, and perhaps they're missing a big player like Ilicic, who, of course, is out through some sort of disagreement with the club, and he's not included in the matchday squad. But perhaps they could have done with him right now. I don't know. It's or they could have done alternatively with the money by selling him.
Yeah, and we said last week we think Osimhen might be back before Christmas. It looks from media reports that's obviously not going to be the case. He's gone to Antwerp to be treated alongside Dries Mertens, I think. But hope to see them back in the new year.
I did just want to say on this as well, absolutely applies to Napoli as well. The fact that we said earlier on in the season that arguably on paper they have the most complete first 11, and that's why we were kind of heralding them as potential champions. But you look at the teams like Napoli who have that strong starting 11, but maybe when you go deeper into the squad, they don't have the quality to replace them. You look at Lazio, who we said didn't bolster their squad enough in the transfer window. You look at Atalanta. You look even at Milan. It is all feeding into this narrative that we expected with this condensed season, where it is going to be a real challenge for the smaller squads to keep up.
Good point. Atalanta, however, rising to that challenge, at least on the evidence of the last game, a 4-1 win over Roma. We'll talk about the game in a second, but I think first, Ken, you need to give us an update on PapuGaspGate, as we're calling it. What's the latest here?
Yeah, well, where to start on this one, really? It seems sadly like Papu Gomez has played his last game for Atalanta, if the reports are to be believed. Gasperini was asked, I'm not sure if it was in the pre-match press conference or the post-match. My memory after this 6%er is letting me down a little bit. But he said it's one thing to upset, to use slightly perhaps more restrained language than Gasperini uses. It's one thing to upset the manager. It's quite another if you upset the owners. And it seems like this has been running throughout the week, and it kind of started on Monday with that Instagram post, I believe it was, that we spoke about, where he basically said a message to Atalanta fans, yada, 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 I'm your club captain, you know me, etc., etc. When I leave, you'll find out the true story. So apparently that upset the president. Then in the Juventus-Atalanta game, there was this incredible situation where the Juventus stadium were playing out the Juventus anthem at the beginning of the game, and Gomez was standing up singing the Juventus anthem, which is incredibly ill-advised.
Why is he playing it?
I know. And also apparently didn't celebrate when Atalanta scored the equalizer in that game. So I think the one thing that Gomez has possibly done this week is unite Atalanta fans behind Gasperini, strangely, because there was this thing that I spoke about last week where, Gasperini's done so much for Atalanta, Gomez has done so much for Atalanta. But I mean, you can't come out and say, you know who I am Atalanta, and give it all of this, and then stand up and sing one of your rivals for Champions League qualifications anthems before the game. You don't celebrate the equalizing goal. It's not great from Papu Gomez at all, and it's a very messy way for this all to end.
Does this give us a clue to the answer to my next question, which is, where is Gomez going next? Is he trying to sweeten up Juventus hierarchy by singing their national anthem, their club anthem.
So, first of all, I want to say that while I can't really defend him not celebrating a goal, although I'm sure he has his reasons, I think the whole anthem thing might have been slightly overdone because I don't think I could sing the Juventus anthem even if I heard it 100 times. I can barely sing the Milan one if they're still using the one they used to use. So I mean I don't know how it is in other countries, but club anthems in Italy are not like a religious statement or something. They probably change every few weeks. And he was trolling a little bit, but he's not like he was pledging allegiance.
But when your loyalty to the club is in question, is trolling for lols really
for sure?
And way you want the club captain to be behaving? I mean,
that's how Boaz behaves on this podcast. He likes to think of himself as the captain. So
I like to think I have a slight clown element in my bag of tricks, and I kind of see the funny side of it. And as a person who's made impulsive decisions on the spot because I thought it was going to be funny and didn't turn out too well, I kind of understand Papu. But having said that, you asked earlier where I think he's going to go. The rumors are all the top clubs in Italy, so Juventus, Inter, Milan, Roma, Napoli. I personally think that he'd probably not be such a good fit for the likes of Milan and Roma, who probably need a out-and-out goal scorer more than they need a creator right now. But he'd certainly fit in any of those other sides. And with Christian Eriksen, I was going to say, with Christian Eriksen seemingly on the way to Paris right now, maybe there's room for tuttocampista, as Papu Gomez likes to think he is, in Antonio Conte's plans. Having said that, if there is one coach who is completely inflexible with his tactics, it's probably Antonio Conte.
Exactly. I don't think he would suit Inter. I think if you've got a problem with discipline in Gasperini's side, where basically anyone's allowed to play anywhere, and you're still upsetting him because you're not fulfilling the role that's asked of you, how are you going to fit into a Conte 11? Would be my question.
Apparently, a big factor in his decision is that his wife and kids are settled in school, so it would make more sense for him to go to one of the northern Italian clubs. And of course, Inter play in similar colors to Atalanta, so the switch wouldn't be so hard.
Who can tell me whether or not he smashed his golden tapir? Because this is a key factor in whether he wins a Scudetto award later on.
Someone smashed this golden tapir. Papu claims it's not he who smashed it. And to be honest, the program where he allegedly smashed it is not adverse to making up that someone smashed it. So I don't know. But at the same time, him not accepting it kind of shows that the situation has got to him, because I've seen this silly award, TV show award in Italy handed out to players in the past. And I've seen kind of Balotelli at least take it with a smile. I think other players got a bit violent as well, but it's never a good look.
Kenny, what do you think?
I don't know. As you said before we recorded, Oscar, his statement emphatically denies that he did it, but he also apparently issued a statement basically denouncing all of these rumors about a fallout with Gasperini, which has transpired to very much be the case. One thing that I did want to say before we move on, and I won't make too much of a point on it, is that strangely enough, since this incident happened at halftime in the Midtjylland game, Atalanta have actually been absolutely transformed. There's an argument to say that if there was any dressing room unrest, basically Gomez not being in the plans has actually worked out for the better. I mean, the victory over Ajax, the game against Juventus, the game against Fiorentina, and this game here, Atalanta have been back to their best. So
yeah, you've preempted my last question, which is, are Atalanta playing well just to spite Gomez? Baz, any takes on that?
Well, I think Atalanta have benefited from the fact that while they had a quite public falling out with one aging fantasista, another aging fantasista has come back into the fold, and Ilicic has been remarkable in these past few games. He's been setting up goals for fun. He managed to get on the score sheet as well, and he's such a lovely player, and it's so good to see him back on the pitch. I said to you guys a few weeks ago that my autocorrect on my phone always corrects Ilicic's name to Illicit, and the way he's been playing, it's perfect.
Oh, that goal was a thing of beauty, and yeah, he transformed. He turned this game on its head. The game against Roma, didn't he? I said to you guys halftime that I thought Atalanta probably could arguably have been going in level, but Gasperini completely rubbished me in the post-match press conference. He said we weren't able to trouble them in the first half. So, but in the second half, just Ilicic absolutely turned it on. And yeah, I mean, 3 of the 4 goals he had a direct hand in, and that goal that he scored was a thing of beauty, really.
We have to speak a little bit about Roma as well, because had they won this game and they were leading 1-0, they would have gone joint third with Juventus. As it is, it's a big missed opportunity, but also some question marks about the squad as a whole. And Fonseca was most emphatic when he said that they went out like men in the first half and they were like children in the second half.
Like warriors in the first half.
Even better, warriors in the first half, children in the second half.
It's another one of those games where, as you were watching it, you kind of think they've got a bit unlucky here and they've played quite well and they should have taken their chances, but it just happens week after week. So you're right, I think you have to start questioning the mentality. And
also some very questionable goalkeeping as well from Mirante.
Yeah, fair point. We've praised him in the past, but yeah, certainly some questionable positioning for some of the goals.
Earlier in the week, the Italian media were saying that the Roma squad as a whole was pretty solid, but that they were lacking a goal scorer, as we said, and also that their goalkeeping department was a little bit weak. And I thought that was a little bit harsh, but given these past few performances, maybe they were onto something.
Yeah, okay. I think that is all the time we've got for football, or for recent football, because we've got quite a lot of questions to get through in the Ask Scudetto. Let's start with a question from Shuts at Shutsapalooza. Kenny, this is one for you, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Who the was Filippo Maniero, and how did he end up at Rangers?
I mean, it's a great question. Kenny can give the second part. I can say that Filippo Maniero was a Serie A journeyman striker who got quite a lot of goals in his time in Serie A and also played for Milan along the way. Not in a particularly stellar period of Milan's history, but still. And specifically to Rangers, Kenny has a good one for you.
Yeah, well, to be honest, not being a Rangers fan, I wasn't quite across how badly Maniero's spell in Scotland went. But I did recently, after seeing this story, I dug out an interview with Maniero, in which the incredible quote answers Schutz's question quite directly.
Oh, the journalist asked him.
Yeah. How did you end up? Yes, probably.
Who are you?
So in Maniero's own words, I was playing for an excellent Torino team, but they went bankrupt when we were in Serie B and we were all freed. I was 33 years old and I knew that this was going to be my last transfer move. I was hoping I would get a move back to Padova, where I started my career, but instead I made the worst decision in my life. I signed for Rangers. I accepted the offer from Glasgow, but in the 2 months I was there, I never played. The first chance I got, I thanked them and went home, and that was the way my career ended. I never played football again.
Well, there you go, Schultz.
Yeah.
That's a comprehensive answer.
It's tragic.
A sad story.
Sad tale. Okay, maybe you can take this one, Boaz. This one's from Richard Cook. What would be a good 2021 for the Italian national side? And do you have high expectations for them, or do you think they're going to underperform?
So first of all, just qualifying for a tournament is nice. Gianpiero Ventura was a genius at getting a very good Italy side, or a decent Italy side, knocked out by Sweden, I believe. I think at the next tournament, I expect Italy to be dark horses. As we mentioned in past episodes, they're probably not on the level of the likes of Germany, Spain, the big nations, and they probably lack an out-and-out star. But at the same time, we've praised Mancini over and over again for introducing a club-like mentality to the Azzurri, and generally they're a joy to watch, and I think maybe they'll win a few neutrals over and perhaps members of the British media will stop using negative stereotypes and, oh, the Italians are so defensive and da-da-da, because it's been a long time since Italy played like that. And maybe it's time for a new cliche book.
In a post-COVID world, anything is possible. I would actually also say that Mancini's been very good at downplaying expectations. This is an Italy side that's on an incredible run. They're very, very exciting. And I would have them down as quarterfinalists, possibly semi-finalists. And when you get to that stage, who knows? Greece famously won the Euros. This Italy side is better than that Greece side, so you never know. But I would have them down as very probable quarterfinalists or semi-finalists.
Kevin Lasagna to score the winner. Heard it here first.
Well, he scored at the weekend, so that's his drought over, at least.
Yeah. Okay, this one's for all three of us, and it's what is the best football-related Christmas present that you've ever received? That's from Mike. I mean, I don't really have like a Italian football-related present, but it was probably just like a Spurs training top or something. I always find they're useful.
So I actually put in quite a lot of groundwork on this. And I actually messaged my parents. They gave me a few pointers, but the one that sticks in my mind.
Do your parents listen to the pod?
They do. Hi, Mum. Hi, Dad. Happy Christmas.
Because since I said a few episodes ago that my girlfriend doesn't listen to the episode, she's like specifically making points from the episodes to make sure I know she listens.
Rumbled.
Yeah.
So for me, the one that sticks in my mind is a Subutio kit that I got one Christmas, where I had the pitch, I had one of the grandstands, which for me was very important. I was very into stadiums as a kid, so to get a grandstand as part of my Subutio kit was good. Plus 3 teams, and I think I spent most of Christmas Day playing with that and trying to rope members of my family into playing against me, and if not, then playing against myself. But my mum also very helpfully reminded me of a slightly unrelated anecdote where on one of my birthdays, I was gifted a poster that was supposed to be a poster of Gullit when he was playing at Milan by a friend of Boaz and mine. And I think this poster was number 66 or something, but accidentally, because of the way the tube was turned, they had bought poster 99 instead, which happened to be of Mikhail Gorbachev. I think when I opened the present, I was a bit stunned, and I was told this is supposed to be a poster of Gullit. We can take it back and get it changed for you if you like. My natural reaction was, yes, please. My mum wouldn't let me because she had just read the week before that Gorbachev had the same birthday as me, and she saw it as a sign that I was going to be like some world leader. So I still have the Gorbachev poster at my mum and dad's house. But unfortunately,
are you a world leader?
I'm not a world leader, so the worst of all worlds, basically. So that's probably my best football present, I think. A poster of Mikhail Gorbachev.
That is fantastic.
I mean, my best Christmas present, and I should stress I'm Jewish, so I've not had too many Christmases. But my best football-related Christmas present is not related to Serie A, but I don't think I've ever told the story on this pod, so I'm going for it. My very first girlfriend was from Merseyside, and I went to visit her on Christmas once. And one of her presents for me was 2 tickets for Tranmere Rovers, whose stadium happened to be across the road from her house. Like literally, you opened the window and you saw this team stadium. And so we went on a cold Boxing Day. It was -2 degrees, very windy. Neither team really wanted to be there. There was about 60 fans, and a dull 0-0. The worst football game I've ever seen in my life.
But the only football Christmas present you ever received.
I think so. I mean, I'm sure there are others, but as I said, this one sticks out because it was particularly dull.
Sorry about that.
And cold.
Jason McAteer.
We broke up soon after this.
I bought my brothers once tickets to see Tottenham playing the Champions. I forget who we were playing. I think it was a Greek team, and we were 2-0 down at half time. And I thought it was the worst present I'd ever bought them, but we ended up winning 4-2. So was that against? I can't sure. Yeah. Anyway, we've got another one actually from Mike. Maybe we can just do this one together. But it's we need to name 3 current Serie A players who are definitely on Santa's naughty list. I mean, obviously, Gomez is
Gomez.
straight in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure.
I'd like to nominate Brozovic because of his antics earlier in the season, showing up in hospital with his friend with a knife sticking out of his leg and beating up cops at the hospital. It's the kind of stuff that Bruce Willis's dreams are made of, and I'm not sure what he's playing at. And the third guy, who else can we give this to?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously tempted always to put Conte down, but he's not a player.
I mean, we just gave him some praise, but you have to say that Luis Alberto's weird social media rant was probably ill-advised at best. I'm not sure. I think maybe he didn't think many people were seeing it, but like, you can't just go online and destroy your employers and say they don't have any money. And it wouldn't if he wasn't a footballer, he would have been fired a long time ago.
Yes, good shout, Luis Alberto, number 3.
Yeah, well done, Boaz. Okay, we've got a question from Paul here. Why is the transfer of players between big clubs normalised in Serie A compared to other top leagues in Europe? So, I mean, I guess he means like selling to competitors.
So, I mean, first of all, I'm not sure it's happened as often in recent years as it has happened in the past. And also, when it does happen, glaring cases are Pirlo moving from Inter to Milan and then subsequently to Juventus. It's not like they're leaving at the height of their career at the respective clubs.
And Baggio as well from Juve to Milan. Was that not the order it went, or did he go to?
Yeah, he went Juve to Milan, and then a few small clubs, then Inter, and then a few more small clubs.
But again, that was Baggio after he was past his prime, perhaps.
I think it's strange to say this because I know the question has come from someone in the UK, but strangely enough, as opposed to most things in life, Italians take club loyalty less seriously. It's not such a religious thing, and I guess they understand that at the end of the day, it's a profession, and that players got to get paid.
And when you're Bobo Vieri and you've played for half of Europe, then what's a big deal about moving from Inter to Juve to Milan to Atalanta to?
Incidentally, that's my favorite career curve.
Maybe he should have been a candidate for this next question, actually, thinking about it. This is one we've put a lot of thought into, which is partially why the pre-production meeting was so long. But Paul's other question is, if you had to book 5 Italian football personalities, players, ex-players, managers, owners, journalists, to appear in an Italian football Come Dine With Me special, who would you choose and why? So first of all, AC Jimbo, James Richardson, is the narrator, because the narrator is just a rip-off of Jimbo anyway.
Totally.
And we think he'd be great in that role. And then the 5 guests are Balotelli, Ranieri, Gaza, Baggio, and Ronaldinho. So Kenny, why did we go with Balotelli?
Why wouldn't you go with Balotelli? Part of Come Dine With Me, and probably one of the most enjoyable parts, is that they have to, for people who don't, I think there are versions of this in the States and possibly in Australia as well, and other English-speaking countries.
I'm pretty sure there's an Italian version as well. In fact, there's probably a celeb version that some footballer has been on, but
very possibly. But part of the beauty of the show in the UK, anyway, is that there's an element where they have to have some sort of entertainment for their guests, either after they've arrived, after they've eaten their meal. And I mean, can you imagine what Mario Balotelli would come up with as the entertainment? It would either be fireworks in the bathroom, or it would be go-karts around the living room. So, I mean, he's first name on the team sheet for me.
And when you leave, he'll give everyone a briefcase with £1,000 in it.
Yeah, the winnings. He'll just share them out and then add in, he'll double up the winnings and then share it out.
This is all I had on me, I'm sorry.
Fantastic. And then to balance him out, we've gone with Ranieri.
Calming presence, someone who can, even Mourinho's turned around to him now.
Yeah, the likable guy. There's always a likable guy, right? There's the guy that you can't take offense to, who everyone kind of wishes was their dad or granddad or whatever.
His special act would be reading poetry, making up strange idioms.
And then we go with Gaza, just to sort of swing the pendulum back, and also for his excellent table manners.
Yes. Well, his infamous Is flatulence the right word when it comes out of your mouth? I don't know. But when he was interviewed, when he was at Lazio on TV, and I think that would go down well on a Come Down With Me show.
Oral flatulence.
A lot of pranks as well.
And then we've got Baggio. I can't remember why.
Because he hunts his own food. And,
Oh, yeah.
and he's also a Buddhist. So I think it'd be an interesting conversation all round. Very zen.
And finally, Ronaldinho, just to bring the party.
Yeah, Ronaldinho would have the samba. There would be a lot of dancing. Would be smiling throughout.
Yeah, I mean, Boaz was struggling throughout the kind of selection process with just choosing the players that he thought would bring the best food, but we had to remind him that he doesn't actually get to attend.
Well, if I was producing said show, I would definitely test some of the samples, whatever Ronaldinho is bringing.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the 5 we went with, and we snuck James Richardson in for a 6th. So yeah, I think that wraps up all the questions.
And we have one from Viola Club Israel as well, which was, how bad is this Fiorentina in comparison to previous versions of the team that you know? And I think since Fiorentina's since the bankruptcy, basically the league table speaks for itself. Really, the situation currently is pretty dire, really. But that there are signs that they are turning a corner a little bit. I would say the Iachini incarnation of Fiorentina, probably the worst since then. But now that there are signs that, like a big ocean liner, things are slowly turning. They've got 2 draws in a row. And Vlahovic has been on the score sheet 2 games in a row. And those were not necessarily easy games on paper. I think it was Sassuolo and Verona, which are not 2 of the whipping boys of Serie A. So this team currently, probably not the worst since then, but the situation under Iachini, probably the worst since then.
Fiorentina seem allergic to winning right now, much like Torino, we mentioned earlier. I mean, if you're comparing this side to the glorious side that won at Arsenal, for example, obviously it's not such a glorious side, but if you look at it player for player, and considering the team was in Serie A not so long ago, they actually should be doing a lot better than what they're doing.
So the next question, a figure who's no stranger to this podcast, what is the consensus in Italy about Antonio Conte's underperformance in Europe? First with Juve, now also with Inter. Is this seen as a problem, or is it just one of those things that can happen?
Antonio Conte has made his career by winning over a long season. He's done it at Chelsea, he did it at Juve, and he's probably going to do it at Inter this season. It looks like there's some issues in motivating his players when the goals are more short term. Having said that, he was very close to winning the Europa League just a few months ago, and you have to say that they probably deserve to win in that final. And so it's perhaps a little bit harsh, but he did leave Juventus with a cloud of dust behind him, and pretty much the same at Chelsea. So you get the feeling that Conte is the kind of manager who brings his players right to the very limit, both mentally and physically. And then once they're completely spremuti, as they would say in Italy, he cuts his losses. He is criticized for obviously not qualifying from the Champions League is a huge mark on his CV. But at the same time, the reason he's the highest paid manager in Serie A at the moment is because he's ultimately a winner, as I've said a few times in the past. And I guess the Inter hierarchy believe that he can bring them trophies in the long run.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
Will Quagliarella ever retire? Who was that one from?
It's from Philip on Facebook.
Will Quagliarella ever retire?
Quagliarella is one of these ever-present faces, and a player who's scored 170 goals in his career, I believe. So hopefully he won't retire for a while. Who knows?
But never against Milan, right?
That's that was a stat that I think I forgot to bring up when Sampdoria played Milan a few weeks ago. But he's scored against every team in Serie A at the moment except for Milan.
There you go. So he can't retire just yet. Okay, I think that's all the questions that you've sent in for us. thanks very much for those. We look forward to answering your questions on a regular or semi-regular basis in the new year. The last section of this podcast is the Scudetto Awards. First up is the Gagliardini Challenge. For anyone who hasn't been listening or doesn't know, this is for the most ridiculous open goal miss, obviously named after Gagliardini, who missed, I can't even remember the game, but he missed a ridiculous open goal at the end of last season. It was against Sassuolo. Yeah. We kind of spoiled this one because I think we're all agreed that it needs to go to Morata.
It has to go to Morata. What are you thinking, mate?
It's quite a recent one, but there were some very good contenders throughout this first half of the season. But Morata really wanted this award. He wanted to put it on his mantelpiece.
Covets it.
Yeah, he wishes for it.
Absolutely. The next Scudetto award is Civilized Beer of the Year. I guess we probably can't agree on one.
No, one each, I think.
Yeah. Kenny, do you want to go first?
I should have given some thought to this. This award seemed to come as a surprise to you guys. I mentioned it, I think, a week ago that this was an award that had to be given. Tempest Brewing Company, Dios mío, for me. Number one, the most importantly, because the can looks cool. And number two, because I was a bit complacent about it before starting it and said that I couldn't taste the spice, but I was still dealing with it afterwards. It was a very good IPA, and it even qualifies for Boaz's description of a beer. It's a 6%er. So,
what do you mean you were still dealing with it afterwards?
As in, it was very spicy.
I'm going to give my award to the 101 California Pale Ale. I think it was one of the first beers I had, but I've been drinking it regularly ever since. It's from the Fat Lizard Brewing Company. Very, very tasty Finnish pale ale, and it says it's from California when it's actually from Helsinki, which I know upsets you, Boaz, but I'm willing to overlook that. So,
as long as it tastes good.
What's your award?
So I've given this a little bit of thought, contrary to what Kenny thinks. I opted for that New England IPA, the Brewdog versus Cloudwater that I had 2 weeks ago. I was hoping to pick a local beer, but that beer in particular really left its mark on me, and I even got my brother to go out and purchase a 6-pack of it for himself. I rarely recommend a beer, but this one is a really, really good one.
Okay, Baz, you're going to have to do the next 2 of these awards for me, because you've been keeping the tally of who's won the most honourable mentions and the most dishonourable mentions. So reveal to us who wins the honour of Scudetto.
So in our defense, we've tried to spread the love in honorable mentions as much as possible throughout these 17 or so episodes. And likewise, we've tried not to focus on one club or one person too much in our dishonorable mentions. Having said that, it looks like at this point of the season, Mr. Rocco Commisso is leading the dishonorable mention table with 2 dishonorable mentions. One for having a whine about Chiesa not saying goodbye to him properly, like a scolded girlfriend, we said at the time. And one for something to do with referees, I believe. And our most honorable person thus far has been Weston McKennie, the American new signing for Juventus, who got honorable mention right at the start of the season when he surprised in a preseason friendly, and then got another one in for his match against Barcelona, I believe. We should also mention, the way we divided these honorable mentions, it's probable that Lazio as a whole got the most dishonorable mentions for clubs, members, president, everything. But I'll work that out for the end of season awards.
I'm surprised that Zlatan hasn't got as many. I think because we talk about him in the main part of the pod every week. And same with Conte.
I think Boaz was banned from an honourable mention for Zlatan once because he'd already given him an earlier one in the same podcast or something.
So Zlatan has one honourable mention, and he also shares an honourable mention with Gervinho when they both scored pretty good goals on the same midweek game.
1.5 then.
Yes. Fair if enough. I were the kind of person who kept tabs on this kind of thing, I would say it's 1.5.
Okay, and the final award, what's this, the Pro Vercelli Award?
Oh, it's the Fall from Grace. Yes. Pro Vercelli famously were one of the one of the highest achieving clubs in Italy in the early 20th century. And now Oscar Geen, host of Scudetto Pod, isn't quite sure how to pronounce their name. So if that's not a fall from grace, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
They're like the Accrington Stanley of Italy.
Fair enough. Anyway, I think we've kind of spoiled who we're going to give this one to as well, Kenny, but do you want to do the honours?
Papu Gomez.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that it was close between Papu Gomez and Paulo Dybala, but I feel like it's really harsh to give this award to Paulo Dybala because it seems like the whole club's behind him. We mentioned it last pod. And also, I think I absolutely love Paulo Dybala. I think he's a great footballer. He's just going through a rough time at the moment. But Papu Gomez's behaviour has, I think, turned a lot of people against him. And for me, hands down, there's very little debate.
He's earned himself the award there, really, hasn't he?
He's another one who really wanted this award, and so he waited towards the end of the season because he knew it would be memorable.
He circled that Juve game in the calendar for different reasons to all the other Atalanta players.
This will be the date where I go crazy.
Okay. We said that part 2 was going to be longer. It's run to nearly double the time. Just time for a few quick honourable mentions. Kenny, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I've got one for Martin de Roon, and this is for his social media. Again, I think we've already given him honourables for social media, but this one, in the aftermath of the Juventus game, he shared a picture of Cristiano Ronaldo in crystal clear focus with Martin de Roon out of focus in the background, and said, just sharing this picture for the engagement, great match guys, or something. And someone responded to him by saying, you should have been sent off, which was obviously a bit of a troll move. Martin de Roon quote tweeted this and said, I absolutely agree. It was too hard. I was late. I hope it's known that it was never my intention to hurt anybody. And I hope that Quadrado's doing all right. And Quadrado also quote tweeted this de Roon tweet by saying, but with a list of emojis, but just basically saying no problem. The funny thing about this, I think, is that the guy who initially said to him, you should have been sent off, then replied to de Roon's tweet saying, oh my God, you replied to my tweet, greatest of all time. To which one eagle-eyed Twitter user underneath had tweeted saying, you've changed your tune. So for that entire exchange, I think Martin de Roon, honourable mention.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost even shaded Karl Kraus on his Twitter usage there. Okay, and next up, you've got another one, Kenny, for Torino here.
Oh, this is a dishonourable mention for Torino. I mean,
it's mislabeled here.
Yeah, again, long story short, it's yet another occasion in which Torino went into the last 15 minutes of a game in a position where they were going to take 3 points, much needed 3 points. And again, they couldn't see the game out. So real problems there.
And one from me, I'm just going to give an honourable to Ilicic's boots. We discussed his excellent goals against Roma, but I was just struck by how well his boots matched his kit. I think Neptune Blue described as, but check them out.
Big fan.
Boaz, you've got a dishonourable for Candreva.
Candreva managed to do the unthinkable and upset Claudio Ranieri, who dropped him from the side for one of the recent matches. It almost looked like Sampdoria had no intention of renewing him. They have a loan deal with Inter that they have to purchase him at the end of the season. But as Kenny correctly mentioned before we were recording, Candreva was soon returned to the first team, and he set up Quagliarella for the goal. So probably all good right now there, but Candreva needs to pull his socks up.
And continuing the dishonourable theme, we've got an update on the Luis Suarez situation. We promised this a few weeks ago. We never came back to it. So
when this whole farce initially started, we kind of speculated about what was the content of the test and what might have happened. Now we know for sure that Suarez was not only served the test well in advance of him taking it, but he still managed to botch it up. There's a whole transcript of his Spanish test, and the people who are testing him are laughing along with him, and he's saying like, oh, I'm a professional footballer in Barcelona, and they're like, haha, we know, ha 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 ha. His whole level of Italian, I mean, Oscar, your Italian is better than Suarez's at the moment.
Damning.
And
that
it's
is damning.
the
Almost
whole
certainly not true.
the whole affair is leaves a bit of a bitter taste, because it looks like quite a few people got together to push this over the line, and Juventus's involvement is still not clear. And to avoid any sort of legal repercussion, I'm not going to mention them right now, but it could get tasty for them as well, because they were in contact with Suarez's lawyers and his agent just before he took this test.
And you've got one more dishonourable for us.
I have to give a dishonorable mention to the Italy embassy of Montenegro.
Okay.
The Italian embassy of Montenegro official Twitter account at Italy in MNE tweeted after the Napoli Lazio game. They responded to a tweet from Napoli midfielder Fabian Rui, who was playing with his dog in this video he posted, and they responded, "You can only play with dogs. Did you even watch this game? You're as slow as a tortoise. You don't deserve this shirt. We don't deserve your atteggiamento, your how would you translate
Attitude.
your attitude." And this is from the official channel. Fantastic.
That is excellent. And a great note to end the year of Scudetto podcast on.
Yeah. For 2020.
2020. Yeah, so thanks again to all our listeners. If you don't already, please subscribe to our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to our podcast. I think that's all from us. Any parting words for our listeners?
I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening. This has been the first season of Scudetto, so we really appreciate your support and look forward to speaking to you more and answering more of your Ask Scudetto questions in 2021.
And this is very tough to say as a Milan fan, but hopefully things are going to get better in 2021 for everyone.
Our New Year's resolution is to keep the podcasts under 40 minutes.
This is a bumper Christmas special. It's fine.
Christmas special.
A 4-beer special.
Okay, so yeah, thanks very much. We'll speak to you in the new year. Until then, enjoy the football.
Partita che sta decretando lo scudetto del Milan in questo preciso istante. La Juventus è campione d'Italia. Questa data, il 6 maggio.